It's a pretty reasonable question to ask, like, how do we get better faster? 1, 2. That's it, let's do it. I've basically dedicated my entire musical life to improving my practice routine, my learning process, and I want to share 3 different levels of how I approach an issue, a difficulty, a problem when it comes up. We're going to use one thing that's a linear idea. It's going to be from my book, Jazz Vocabulary for Electric Bass 251. It's going to be based around the 251. We're also going to use something from my book Cordal Harmony, which is going to incorporate a bass line and a melody note, so we get some more meat and potatoes element of the bass. But this concept applies no matter what source material you're using. This is what I want you to leave the video with, is a new tool that you can literally approach anything you come across that is an issue with any element of your technique, and you can get better at it faster than you ever have before. Let's go with the linear idea first. For all you jazz heads out there, it's a 2-5. We don't even get to the 1 in this idea. This is something I stole from Michael Brecker many, many years ago.
Is there anyone that can do it slow?
And it outlines very, very clearly the 2 and the 5 of a potential 2-5-1 cadence. And this was a real sticking point for me, technically speaking, when I first came across it, especially when you listen to a saxophone player or basically any instrument that isn't the bass that gets to fly around these ideas with seemingly great ease. It was a real sticking point to get from kind of picking my way through the idea to being able to really legato, really fluid, almost like a saxophone player. So I have 3 stages that I like to approach a linear idea like this with when it comes to the technique, when it comes to really getting this into my playing. The first is when it's a 2-part thing. We have 2 sets of 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So the thing is, we can split it in half, first of all. Now, I love to do that. I love to be able to split things in half. It's a little difficult if it's just 2 notes. When you have something like this, any kind of phrase that's maybe a bar long, you can split it in half and work on the first half and the second half sort of way more individually, and being able to use probably the most important part of anything that is going to be a natural part of your playing, which is repetition. So I'm going to take the first 4 notes and repeat them 4 times. 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to switch to the second set of 4 notes, repeat them 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And repeat that over and over again. 4 and 4. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The second stage of this is to cut it down to twice with each half of the idea. So we just go 2 and 2. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I would try and dedicate as much time to that as possible. You all know what your time constraints are. You all know how much time you get to spend with the instrument every day, so you will have to manage that. There's no set amount of time that it takes. I don't think there's such a thing as too much time with the instrument, as long as you're taking regular breaks, as long as you're not doing anything to injure yourself, and as long as you're enjoying it. That's probably the most fundamental thing we should have opened the entire video with here. So obviously, I think you see where we're going here. The next step, our third step in terms of getting this really inside our playing, is to just do one-on-one, to play the phrase as it's written. Now, the way the idea is laid out in this book, in Jazz Vocabulary for Electric Bass 251, it descends in half steps, descends and ascends. So there is sort of a 4th layer to this. And I think that sort of 4th layer, you have those 3 fundamental layers. That 4th layer is the one that really gets into the details. So once we have 4 and 4 and 2, I've already gone too long. 2, 1, 2, and then just the phrase. Once that is in your playing, and of course I'm accelerating this process for the purpose of the video, once the idea is at that level, then the next thing is really the details and how we move that around the instrument, how we really expand our knowledge of the fretboard through this idea. So we start to get into articulation after this. And by doing this, you almost have to hit the reset button again once you find the articulation you like, because as you're just getting the meat and potatoes of it, repeating 4 times and then 2 times and then just playing the phrase, you're not necessarily playing the exact articulation that you might find is the most efficient for you. So with this idea, I found that especially when I change key, when I move down that half step, that on that top string of the instrument, it's going to be a slide into the first note each time I shift positions. And you might already be able to hear that I'm pulling off down here. That's a pull off between the first and second finger at the very bottom of the phrase. That one right there. And a hammer on. So I get into the details of the articulation and what works for me. I think it's going to be very different for everyone watching this. Of course, the articulation I've just shared with you could be a great place to start, but I highly recommend trying different fingerings, different articulations, different picking hand techniques, and finding what works for you. There is no correct or one way to do it because everyone is so different. Now let's apply this same 3-part technique to the very first exercise in Cordal Harmony. All you need to know for this is a major scale. We're going to do it in the key of G, and we're going to walk up the major scale on the same string, on the bottom string of the instrument, on the E string. What we are going to do though is add the chordal element to it. We're going to add the 10th, which is the 3rd up an octave, to each of those degrees of the G major scale. So our first degree adds a B natural on top. All of the 10ths are going to be played on the top string, on the G string. And we go up in sequence. So we're playing a G major scale from B on the G string while we're playing a G major scale from G to G on the E string. Here's what it sounds like, and then I'll get into breaking down how I would approach getting this most efficiently into my technique. So we have 2 G major scales, one from G to G, one from B to B, that provides 10ths. Here's our chordal element, and we work up and down. In this case, the G major scale. No reason, of course, why we can't do it in every key. I highly recommend that. But we'll stick to G for now for the example. Now, exactly the same as the linear idea, I try and approach it with repetition and using small elements of it. This covers quite a large area of the instrument, so it's going to take a little more effort to move up and down, and we're going to be experiencing a lot more sort of position shifts in this one. So it's a great technical exercise, sort of all round, regardless of whether you're looking for chords or bass lines or melodies. And of course, we go repetition 4 times. So just the first 2 notes, actually, not even the entire thing. I'd do just the first 2 positions. So G major and A minor, and do 2, 3, 4. Then I'd add the 3rd scale. So we'd go G major, A minor, B minor. So we do that 4 times. 2, 3, 4. And of course, we just keep adding adding the next degree of the scale as we go through the exercise. So next one would be G through C, through the 4 chord, G, A minor, B minor, C major, 2, 3, 4. Now we add up to the 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it's not sexy. It is hard work, and as you can see, it's taking some time just to get from 2 notes in the scale to 5 notes in the scale up to the 5 chord. This to me highlights how the work is almost never done, how there's always something we can continue to work on, and how we can extract more information and more ability, more technique, more learning from the simplest things, from a major scale, from literally the first exercise in the book. Again, you don't have to have either of these books. All of these concepts apply to any source material. Anything that you're like, oh, I can't really do that. How do I break it down, and how do I get better at this faster? How do I make more efficient use of the time I get to spend with my instrument? Those are my 2 exercises. Those are my 3 approaches. Don't forget the little 4th layer of the articulation. As it pertains to the chordal idea, I'll leave you with this now. I'll give you a little sort of extra special sauce, a little sort of fretting hand workout. You may have noticed that while I was doing that, I was using the 2nd finger on the root note and the 4th finger on the 10th. And I did that all the way up. I didn't change the left hand fingering, the fretting hand fingering for me as a right-handed bass player. Now, you can approach this so many different ways from a fretting hand perspective, and I really recommend that you do, and also in all 12 keys. Try it with things that almost don't make sense, like why would I ever use that fingering? But try it, because at some point you will find yourself maybe out of position or just in need of a chord that really doesn't make a lot of sense actually, and you need that technique, you need that fingering, you need that experience and that muscle memory of how to get from one place to another. And it's breaking down very simple exercises like this that have helped me develop that skill throughout my career. So let's try 1st finger on the bass note, 2nd finger on the 10th. A bit more of a stretch. It's a little less obvious perhaps. You're going to find that certain fingerings don't feel great in the lower register, but they feel great in the upper register, and vice versa. We already did 2 and 4, so what about the mega stretch of 2 and 3? And then, of course, 3 and 4. Oh, I was just about to close the video with, hey, did you notice that there was basically no difference in my technique between all the fingerings? As soon as I had that thought, that's when I made the mistake and I played a minor chord instead of a major. Okay, that just goes to show that after almost 30 years of doing this, there really isn't too much time to be spent with the instrument. As long as you're loving it, as long as you're inspired by it, and as long as, like I said before, you're not hurting yourself, you're not causing any injury. Take regular breaks. Don't go crazy. Don't go 6 hours in a row like a maniac. I'm guilty of that. It's not great. Take a break every 90 minutes or so. Be kind to yourself and try and incorporate this concept with these 2 exercises. If you want to take any of this material further, if you want to see more of the things in these books, chordal stuff, linear stuff with jazz vocabulary with 251, they're linked below. There are some physical copies that are shipping worldwide. I'll sign them and ship them out to you with a lot of love. And that's it. I appreciate you watching the video. Appreciate you being a part of the YouTube channel. And if you dig what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, leave me a comment, ask me a question. I'm all about answering your questions. I try and get to every single comment that gets left. So if you have a question, leave it below, and I'll see you on the next one.